control the vertical.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic with your host Mark. Today I'm covering a British anthology series, a bit unusual in its structure compared to what we usually do. This is called Armchair Thriller, and it aired over 2 seasons in 1978 and 1980, broadcast on ITV, independent television in the UK. It's unusual because most of our anthology series, they concern a single story in a single episode. This one spans episodes. However, it's still an anthology. So one story may take 4 episodes, another story not connected in any way may take 6, and so on. So basically the story is spread over a number of episodes, but each episode is not related in any way to any other. There were 2 series, 55 episodes in all. In terms of number of stories, let me see. Season 1 had 5 stories in all, and season 2 had 7 stories in all. So 5 and 7, 12 stories in all, but spread across 55 episodes. Interesting. It was aired bi-weekly, which means 2 episodes a week on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night. The format was roughly 25 minutes of television per episode. And as I say, it went out Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it seems like some of the episodes, at the very least, end on a cliffhanger, a sort of suspenseful, something horrible or sort of major's about to happen, and we're not going to see it until the next time. It's kind of that thing. It's a cliffhanger kind of thing. Interesting episode. Not entirely successful, I think. It was mostly produced by ITV, but I believe Southern Television also contributed a few of the stories and produced it. But there is one particular series that is quite famous, which is an adaptation of Quiet as a Nun, which I think was called The Black Nun, if I remember right. No, it is called Quiet as a Nun. That one's a fairly striking one, apparently. So, but that is not until the 4th story in the series. The one I'm talking about now is the first story of season 1. It's called Rachel in Danger. Spread across 4 episodes, so I'd say about 140 minutes of TV. Interestingly, directed by Waris Hussein, most famous for being the first man to direct an episode of Doctor Who. He directed the Unearthly Child story in Doctor Who, and he's made a number of quite interesting contributions to British TV and cinema, in fact. As one of his films is one of a personal favourite of mine called Melody, and I find him a quite interesting director. He was an Indian working in British TV. Unusual at the time. He was working, certainly in the Doctor Who era, which was 62, and this was made in 78, so he had a fairly long career, that's 16 years later, and he was still working fairly consistently. This one was written by John Bowen. What I will say about it is it's set around a little girl called Della. Called Rachel, played by Della Lowe. Not great acting. It was a bit flat. However, the way she was written and presented, she seemed to be interested in practical things, and Winifred were very well spoken, but keeping it very unemotional, if you like. It could be, watching it these days, you could consider perhaps she's on the spectrum. She's on the spectrum of autism, and that kind of might explain some of this, but it just also, I think the dialogue's quite functional. No, that's not true. It's kind of almost trivial. It's almost soap opera kind of dialogue throughout this. However, the series, the particular story is elevated by the presence of Stephen Grief, who's really quite good. The story is this, and I'll probably spoil this. I'm not sure if anyone's concerned, but I'll probably spoil this. The story is this. Della is on the way from Scotland down to stay with her father, or live with her father, in fact, who her parents divorced when she was very young. So she hasn't actually seen her father since she was 2, so cannot really remember him, right? Her mother sends her down on the train for work reasons. She can't accompany her. She's a young girl, I'd say 10. I don't really know, something like that. And she's on the train, but an old lady sort of befriends her and offers her sandwiches and talks to her about what's going on, which is a way of dumping exposition about the backstory, right? However, in the meantime, her father is preparing to meet her. He's gone to buy flowers. He's going through a street market. He bumps into an old friend that he used to know from South America. He's a professor or a lecturer or something, and he meets this man played by Stephen Grief, whose character's called Juan, and Stephen Grief goes, says, it's good to see you and all this. Finds out his situation, that really lives alone and no one really keeps in contact with him, and promptly kills him. It turns out that Juan is involved in a political group that are planning to assassinate. I'm not sure it's explicitly said during the show, but assassinate someone at a royal garden party. So the implication is the Queen, right? And I think in the Wikipedia and notes about the story, they do suggest it's the Queen. But of course, he's unaware he's got a daughter coming in, impending. Meanwhile, she's sitting on the station for quite a while, and the transport police sort of think she's waiting for someone, a bit concerned about her. They discuss whether she's a runaway, and one of the old hands is saying runaways don't just sit there with their cases, they're off as soon as they can. And they get to the bottom of it. They go round to the house of her father, and it's Stephen Grief, who very quickly and smartly sort of says, oh my goodness, I thought she was coming tomorrow, and all this sort of stuff. And I think he does find some correspondence from Della to her father, so he knows a little about what they've been talking about. And so it goes on. So yeah, the station police interesting. We see a very early turn from an actress called Gwyneth Powell, who actually became more a well-known face a few years later, where she played the head mistress in the children's sort of soap drama show Grange Hill, quite a famous show. She was Mrs. McCluskey, the head mistress. She's quite good in that role. She's good here. I have to say, some of the acting's quite good, pretty good. It really does fall down a little when it's all about Della. Certainly when she's not interacting with Stephen Grief, he elevates the material. He delivers really well. He's really good in this. I've seen him in a number of things from the 70s. He's very, very solid presence and can portray all sorts of different characters very well. He was quite famous in Blake 7. He had a role in that was replaced by another actor. I can't remember if that was the right way around, but he is kind of well known from that. But this was pre that as well, obviously. I'll say obviously. It was about the same time, actually, 78. That's roughly when Blake 7 came out. So it was that's interesting. And there's a few other characters. There's a character called, I think it's Wormald, who's a Brummie who sort of comes around the flat, and they're basically trying to. They're using this flat, and they've got an invitation to a garden, but royal garden party, and they're plotting to assassinate. They've got basically a sniper rifle built into her umbrella, for example. And the plot unfolds, and it unfolds pretty nicely. Della doesn't entirely suspect something's wrong, but she does take her time to ask specifically the name of the WPC who's kind of helping her, and the desk sergeant says she probably wants to write a thank you letter and stuff like that. However, Della's smart enough to realise something's going on, especially when she finds a corpse in a compartment at the end of the second episode, which she doesn't, not entirely sure is her father, but she knows there's a dead man, and she's kind of figures it out. However, Stephen Groove keeps her on the case. They need her as cover for the garden party or something like that, and they actually do talk about getting rid of her at one point, but the guy Wormold will not stand for that. He's a forger, and he threatens to tear up the invites if they harm the little girl. And there's some plotting around that, and there's assassination. It's kind of a lot of death in this, frankly. Quite surprising. It's pre-Watershed. It's quite, and there's stabbings and stuff like that. So yeah, and it goes on. It's okay. It's okay. It kept my interest for its running period, but it just wasn't put together that well. It felt a little padded in places and a little staged. It was all done on videotape, which gives it that kind of cheap look. Things like that don't age well. Unfortunately, loads of programs, both on BBC and ITV, were recorded in that way at this time. You kind of get used to it, but it does take a bit of getting used to. Something they don't do in American dramas so much, do they? They do it used to do it in American sitcoms, but not so much dramas. They tended to use film. But yeah, interesting. And as I say, there's supposed to be another story in this set that's considered a really good bit of horror, Quiet as an Ant. I think I might actually get to it at some point. I do own the box set for this, though I do believe the entire set is on YouTube if you want to watch it. Not entirely successful, I'd say, but probably given you're consuming it in 22, 23, 24-minute chunks, it's okay. That's the best I can say about it, I guess. I think I will stop here. I don't really want to spoil it. It's worth a watch if you're interested to find out what happens and to see how Rachel navigates this murderous group, frankly, who want to kill someone. And then they are intent on killing her. Once she served her purpose as well. So, but this little girl who is, comes across as written as very intelligent, but not socially, not nuanced. She speaks nicely and she's not rude, but she's startlingly adult in the way she speaks too. So it could be disconcerting. For some people, in the characters, I mean, but they all seem reasonably taken with that. Wormold, for example, wants to protect her from what the plans are. So yeah, an interesting one, one worth getting to for me personally, but I can't say it's a massive recommend, but it's okay, and I believe it's all on YouTube. I will stop there. Before I go, may I ask, is anybody out there?
I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to